gave you an overview of what my background is. I'd like to give you an opportunity to ask your questions, which I think is the important thing here.
Okay. Let me start with my generic question.
Name and district.
Yeah, name and district.
So Julian Santos, State Senate District 36. It was a seat that was held by Rene Garcia, who's turned out.
You are aware that already David Perez came here?
No, I'm not aware.
Oh yeah, David Perez came here and we endorsed him. But
Okay.
we are also into double endorsement. If we like what you have to say, we will endorse you too. Because this is a primary and we are not going to be making, we are not King Solomon.
Sure.
We're not going to make. So, you are familiar with our position.
Yes.
In what way you believe you can apply? Well, first of all, do you agree with our position?
Pretty much all of them, yeah.
Okay.
Which one don't you?
I'd have to see the specific list again. Do you have it in front of you?
Can we give
No, but that's not
The bottom part.
No, no.
The position
But
of
the bottom part.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna follow
Okay.
I have a lot to say about higher education.
Right.
No,
Are you for universal free higher education?
Free public.
I'm not. I'm not for universal higher education. I think one of the big drags on improving wealth and moving and upward mobility in this country right now is the level of student debt. The reality is that there are limited resources. Even if we have the most equitable tax structure in the world, I don't know that it would be enough to be able to juggle all the things that we want. Like, for me, a priority is Medicare for all, universal early childhood education, good unemployment benefits, good retirement benefits. I prioritize those things over a universal higher education system, and that's really the caveat there. I don't know that universal higher education is something that I would prioritize over those things.
We're not saying universal higher education, we're saying a free public college and university. If you want to go to Harvard, that's your deal.
Yeah.
That's on you. But if you want to go to a public institution, that we will support that to be free.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes, universal public education, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's
Higher education, like
Right.
what people that say we can't afford it, like what existed in New York
Right.
when I went to CUNY.
What exists in New York today?
Like it's in New York today. He's right. I was in New York today.
CUNY has tuition now.
Right.
But he answered it. Public education, universal, yes, and then
Yes.
regular other private institutions, no.
No,
When I
Okay.
went to CUNY, there was no tuition.
No, Michael is right. CUNY doesn't have any.
Okay, but dependent is
we discuss that later.
Yeah, they have tuition.
Not
No,
anymore.
they changed.
For
Oh, they
credentials.
did?
Now the state, all education, all universities in
¿Cómo
New York
dice?
are free.
Oh, great. Oh, that's great. That just
okay.
happened, yeah.
Okay, Peter, you had a question?
Yes, I want to know what do you think about the unions, the right to work, and also protecting the unions and the workers' rights.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I think labor unions are critical to the success of the middle class. Obviously, you guys, a lot of you are in unions, and the tremendous amount of benefits that you guys have accomplished historically. I mean, we have a weekend because of unions. We've had wage increases historically because of unions. My issue is not at all with the unions, but in the approach. I think we're playing too much defense, and I think we need to play more offense. I think we need to not only form a platform about the things that we're against, but start talking about the things that we're for with unions. Yes, let's repeal the right to work laws, but let's also talk about strengthening unions, not just doing away with things that are weakening them.
Like, for example,
how would
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
how would we go about that? How would you go about strengthening unions? You have some ideas on how to do it?
I don't. I'm here to listen. That's really it. Yeah.
Okay.
But any ideas that you guys have per se, I'm here to listen to those and provide my feedback.
Healthcare, how do you see healthcare?
Healthcare is a top priority for me. That's like my number one priority. I think long term at the federal level we need to move to a single payer system. I don't think it's feasible at the state level. We've seen states like California whose political composition is most ideal to accomplish it at the state level. Nonetheless, they have struggled with it because it's such a financial burden there. So I mean, it's obviously if California can't accomplish it, how on earth are we going to accomplish it here in Florida? I think it's a thing that has to happen at the federal level because it's a greater pool of risk insurance premiums and it becomes more financially feasible at that level. That's why we just had this Koch brothers funded study that backfired on them come out saying that actually, you know what, this single tariff system is actually going to be better than the one we have right now. And that's exactly why. It's because when you pool it at the federal level over such a large base, it becomes financially feasible. But here in the state of Florida, in terms of the steps that I'm intending to pursue, absolutely yes on expanding Medicaid. But even if we fall short of expanding Medicaid, I think we need to provide better funding for the existing segment that is covered. One of my big priorities, I was speaking with earlier today, a task force on elderly affairs here in Dade County that's run by United Way. And one of the segments that's really underfunded with our current Florida Medicaid program is the elderly home care services. That's critical. Obviously, one of the choices that people have when they get sick at an elderly age is whether to stay at a nursing home or whether to get home care. And almost universally, people prefer to get treated at home. However, there's a huge waiting list for what's called the long-term health care waiver here through Florida Medicaid because it's not properly funded. And so, short of expanding the Medicaid through Obamacare, we absolutely need to fund that piece critically.
Sheila?
So, regardless of the payer system, right? This question is pertaining to how care is delivered. Okay. So, in the state of Florida, there are few regulatory agencies that really restrict, say, hospitals from charging exorbitant fees, right? There's this thing called the charge master, and the charge master is kept in secret, and there's no way to know how much you're going to get billed for services. So while Medicare and expanding Medicare for all may be something that's more people at the federal level, at the state level, you would be, a key player in regulating how some of these private healthcare corporations treat us, right? Because we're already being treated like we are a natural resource that they can extract from the ground. Outside of JCO, there really is no way to regulate these corporations from ripping us off. So my question to you would be, if you were in office, what would you do to ensure that there is more regulatory policies in place that protect consumers and patients like everyone here in this room?
So I won't pretend to be, all that familiar with that particular issue. However, it is something that came up in a podcast that I was listening to recently, which is the issue that, when people go to the emergency room, which is for a lot of, low-income and vulnerable populations, this is their first line of defense because they don't have insurance in a lot of cases. They don't know in advance how much that emergency room visit is going to cost because the fee structure is very hidden. So I don't know how we get there, right? But I'm all for transparency in ensuring that consumers know exactly how much the services that they're going to incur, how much the cost will be. So it's a decision that is in their best interest. So absolutely 100% yes on consumer transparency.
Charlotte, go ahead.
Okay. What is your stand? What is your stand against stand your ground racist laws?
100% against.
And bribing the NRA, resulting in insane gun laws?
100% against. I think you're going to find that in the state of Florida, I'm taking the boldest position on guns. I believe we need to have a conversation about the Second Amendment. Are we ready to push for repeal of the Second Amendment? Obviously not. The environment is just not ready there. But I do believe we need to have a conversation at the national level about the Second Amendment. I applaud the fact that we're renewing the conversation on Stand Your Ground. We need to get rid of it. I applaud the fact that we are having a bold conversation about banning assault weapons. But guess what? In black neighborhoods, in poor neighborhoods, neither of those two are going to accomplish or move the needle much on gun violence. Much of the gun violence that is taking place in black neighborhoods and in poor neighborhoods is with regular handguns. We're not having a conversation about that, and we absolutely need to. So we need to take a much bolder stance on gun control.
Yeah, you have Juan?
No, I'm good.
Victor?
How do you feel about public financing of elections?
I think we should explore it. The few states that have looked into it, I think Arizona and Maine have what are called clean elections, where basically, candidates have to collect a certain amount of small dollar donations. I think in Maine, it's like $5, and once you reach a certain number of small dollar donations, you get matching funds from the state, and your spending is capped. And have we had a political revolution in our favor in those states? No. Those states are pretty, a little bit to the right. And so you haven't had this progressive wave, but I think they are good ideas that we should explore because it's going to be a step toward getting money out of politics, which is, I think, a goal we all have.
Peter, you have a question?
What do you think about the situation with Russia, whereby they're saying now we should have a paper trail, we should have voting on paper versus the computer, unless the computer's going to be backup, to offset the stealing of information of personnel. Do you agree that we should have a paper trail versus the computer that's on now?
I think in Florida we have paper ballots, right? But you're talking about the paper trail?
Well, paper.
A receipt when you vote.
A receipt when you vote? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm completely against any sort of digital voting or anything like that. I mean, that's obviously subject to a lot of hacking, and we can't afford that. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Michael?
Okay, President Obama, before he left office, was on the verge of normalizing relations with Cuba. There's a lot of people here in the district that you are going to represent. That's very important. What's your stance on normalization of relations?
Complete normalization.
The opposite end of that question. If I heard you correctly, you represent Brownsville and Lib City.
Parts of Liberty City, all of Brownsville.
All of Brownsville. So what are your credentials in this day and age to represent the black community?
Well, I
How do
think
you see yourself?
Yeah.
It's a hard question, but
Not at all.
Fair question. That's a fair
Not at all a
question.
hard question. I think the issues that I'm running on, expanding access to affordable health care, improving public education, especially early childhood education, addressing climate change. I think these are issues that affect the most vulnerable populations, such as those in those neighborhoods, the most. Obviously something that we all care deeply about at a broad level is inequality, income inequality, and more specifically wealth inequality, which is an even bigger problem. There's no inequality built to file. That's a comprehensive problem that we have to tackle from multiple angles, whether it's housing, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education. For my part, I think the biggest piece is education, and specifically early childhood education. We've seen study after study saying in the first 5 years is when 90% of human brain development takes place. 90%, first 5 years. In this state, we've done a good job of expanding access to early childhood education. In 2001, the voters, created the VPK program via ballot measure. And as a result, we've seen enrollment for 4-year-olds go up to 75%, which is pretty good. However, if you look at the quality of our early childhood education program, it's in the bottom 10 of the country. That's because we don't fund it.
you're talking to the wrong guy. I was the senior administrative officer for Head Start for 5 years.
So we don't do a good job of quality in this state for early childhood education. That's one of the places that I want to start for addressing inequality.